Welcome back to Maury's Music. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And we have a lot to talk about. How you doing today, Spoon?
I'm doing very good and looking very forward to this very special podcast.
I am too, because we have a special guest. Should I introduce him or should you?
I think you should have the honors.
You think we should try to do it together?
Let's give it a try.
3, 2, 1. Tim Teel.
Tim Teel.
Perfect.
One and only Tim Teel.
What's up, Tim Teel? How are you today?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, good.
Very, very good. It's so great to have you here. Thank you.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Most of our listeners are familiar with you, Tim, but for the ones that are not, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your official title at work?
Okay. Yeah, so I work at Martin Guitar. I'm the head designer at the company, and I've been there for going close to 37 years. So it's a great company. Love working there. What I do in terms of helping to develop and forward the company in model design is one of my passions. So it seems like a very good fit.
Well, congratulations, and congratulations, C.F. Martin and Company, for having been lucky enough to have you there all these years, designing the guitars and other things. Maury and I both go back a long way with you, and
Yeah.
So, but I think it would be very nice. Well, like for instance, I'm aware of the fact that you started there when you were in your teens, if I remember, and that at the same time you started, your grandfather was actually working at Martin Guitars. So maybe you can start and give us a quick overview, kind of the history of your career and rise through the ranks at Martin Guitar.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I just got out of high school and was working for a contractor for about close to a year. Maybe not even quite a year, but basically 1986, my grandfather said, hey, the company's starting to look for people, and working for a contractor was a little bit sketchy. There was a lot of days you didn't have work and that kind of stuff, and I wanted something steady. And since I grew up literally across the street from my grandfather, I've always had an affinity for Martin Guitar because of his love for the instruments and the company, and thought, man, this would be great. I've always been like a craftsman sort of style person. I always loved working with my hands. So I thought it would be a great opportunity, and it turned out it really was. So that was in 1986, went in for a job interview, and in fact, when I walked in the front doors, there was a little old man right in front of me, and he held the door open for me and said, hey, welcome to Martin Guitar. And I didn't know who he was at the time, but it turned out that was Chris Martin's grandfather, CF III.
Wow.
I was pretty special.
Who was, we should point out, was chairman of the board at that time. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So he every day that he would be there, and he was close to 90 or in his 90s at that point. He would walk around every day that he was there, and just say hello to everybody. So that was really cool. But went in for my job interview and got hired into strings. The first job I had in strings was tying these little figure-8 knots on the end of nylon strings for the ball end, for ball-ended nylon strings, which are quite rare as well these days. But I was losing my mind after the first day. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And my grandfather said, just hang in there, and very quickly, about 2 weeks of that, ended up getting a job on the ball ending machine, which then quickly led into fixing the ball ending machine because they were very old at the time. And, worked my way in the first few months into a mechanic for fixing the machines. And then I was able to get a job into manufacturing, and there was 3 jobs available. So I put my bid in for the first job, which was inspecting Stinger electric guitars. So you guys may or may not remember those, I forget.
Oh yeah.
if you do remember those. Yeah, but they were an imported line of electric guitars, and I thought, how cool would it be to just play electric guitar all day? Of course, reality, it was a lot of setup and fix up some minor issues on them. Did not get that. Second job I put in for, which was top and back assembly, and I thought it'd be a very, very nice job to do, and did not get that job either. What I did get was the third job I put in for, which was neck fitting, and it was one of the most challenging things in my life to learn it well and to learn it efficiently. And for the first year, it took a good full year to really become a proficient craftsman for neck fitting and really get the chops down on doing it. So
When you refer to neck fitting, you're talking about fitting the traditional dovetail neck joint into a neck block. Is that correct? And
yes, and
getting it the correct angle. And can you just briefly kind of explain what a neck setter, a neck fitter does in terms of from the time they get the body and the neck that have been traveling through the factory and are now coming together for the first time?
In those days, it's a little different than it is now, and especially nowadays. Like if you take the tour today, it pretty much everything except for some custom product will bypass what we would call rough fit, which is the first neck fitting I ever did was rough fit. And rough fit, basically, you would open up the dovetail, because you got to understand the dovetail was pre-cut into the block, and then the sides would be glued over the block, covering the dovetail. So you'd have to take a dovetail saw and open up that block by hand with a dovetail saw to cut through the rosewood and open up that pocket. Once that was cleaned up, you would also then have to flatten the side with a sander and a block, just to make sure everything was nice and flat on the body. And then you take a neck, and the early days we were not gluing the fingerboard onto the neck, and then later we started gluing fingerboards on first and then fitting with the fingerboard on. But the goal was to align the neck to the body so it was perfectly centered and had the correct angle, so it would fit a correct bridge once it was ready for glue up at the very end of the assembly line. So lastly, you would cut the heel down to a proper level so the heel plate would line up with the binding edge. That was the binding edge that was closest to the rosewood. So once that was all done, then you would assign a serial number to the neck that the body would have in it already, and then they go their separate ways into the finishing line.
So how much time typically would you say it took a craftsperson from start to finish to get it to that point?
That's a good question. We were allotted 15 minutes per neck.
Wow.
And
I'm sorry, I thought you said 15 minutes.
yeah, and and at first, I mean, it can take you, close to an hour to really get it. And also remember that these are pretty precision parts. In the early days, though, they were pretty rough because everything was non-CNC made. Once the CNC technology came on in the early 90s, and then we also had some other improvements along the way. If things were set properly from the machining aspect, you could fit a neck in probably about 5 minutes, as a rough fitter. Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with, when guys build their own guitars in their home shops and stuff, I mean, you could spend a few hours easily, just getting halfway done, and having a good fit. So, anybody listening, if you're struggling with neck fitting, you're not alone. It is a it is a skill that takes a very long time to get it and to get it right. And that's why, quite honestly, a lot of companies don't do the traditional compound dovetail.
Of course.
Even Martin, in the 90s, we had a lower line of guitars that we started using a mortise and tenon joint, and we still use that. joint in our line of guitars made in our Mexico facility. And then that transitioned from mortise and tenon to a simple dovetail. A number of years ago now, they developed a machine that would kind of read all the angles of the neck and body. And for the simple dovetails, everything was read. There was a algorithm that would produce a cutting program for both the body and the neck, and then the machine would basically fit the neck and body, for cutting, and then all the operator had to do was check it out, maybe make a minor tweak or two, and then glue it together. Today,
Come a long way.
the compound dovetail also now goes through a very similar machine. And again, except for like some custom product and authentics, they still get fit by hand. But the machining is quite impressive compared to anybody else in the industry. There's nobody in the industry doing this as far as I know. If there is, I'd like to know. But it's proudly displayed on tour. So if anybody ever gets a chance to visit the factory, the operators who run both of the simple dovetail and compound dovetail machines, they're quite eager to show and explain how these things work. So it's pretty cool.
So you started out as a neck setter and eventually mastered that. And then how did you graduate from that to your next job at Martin?
I started becoming like an assistant manager for top and back assembly, pearl work. I did that as well. And a lot of times, I would help out wherever the need was, So back in the day, if there was a repair on the production line, something that could be fixed, I would take care of it. Just did a lot of odds and ends along the way. And then there was an opening for what was called the pilot plant at the time. And it basically turned into research and development. But the pilot plant was, if we were developing as a company, say a new product such as the D1 back in the 1990s, that pilot plant and the pilot plant was literally me and another guy. we would take those parts and kind of get them put together and make sure that they were okay for production, and really suss out any problems. Eventually, some things moved around and jostled around, and I was promoted up to head of the research and development group, and then we started, getting into a lot of different types of builds and such. Right before that, I also helped develop the X Series guitars, and that was something at the time that was very controversial because of the makeup of the material, and that's a whole story unto itself. But it was a very interesting way of helping me to understand the dynamics of the acoustic parts of the guitar, because if you think about the material itself, it's really not a great acoustic material. And once you understand that, then you can figure out ways to make that material resonate and act more like a natural piece of wood.
I'm just going to say, for people who are unfamiliar with the X Series, the original ones were made entirely of high-pressure laminate, which is a combination of resin and fiber. Is it wood fiber? Is that what it's made from?
Wood fiber, yeah, yep.
And then they also have an upper grade version with a solid Sitka spruce top as well.
Right. And at the time when that product was developed, we were thinking, we'll do maybe 1,000 or 2,000 a year, and very, very quickly it did take off because it's a great value. They sound great. They are pretty robust for a guitar, an acoustic guitar especially. And a lot of people thought, this would be a great way to hang a guitar in a different area of the house. I don't have to worry about it. I can take it on the road. It's become a widely accepted platform, and that guitar line lived in Nazareth. We set up a whole assembly cell for it, and that guitar lived in Nazareth for about 10 years or so. And then it was eventually made sense to, keeping the price point as low as possible. We ended up moving manufacturing to Navajoa so that we could keep the price low. And also we needed room in Nazareth because our higher end product lines have taken off as well. So we needed room for a custom shop, expansion of that custom shop, and also for standard production.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, the custom shop has certainly blown up and expanded when it was back in the old days when it was really the most experienced workers working on things out on the floor still, and then the original authentic models kind of was the pilot program of this is going to be its own area for custom instruments, and now it's one of the centerpieces of the factory, which is pretty awesome. And then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so after many years in R&D, we had a team of guys, and as things move around and things change over time, I ended up having to focus more on instrument design, and we kind of split the two areas a bit. So my focus now, and has been for the last probably 15 years, has been instrument design, and then the guys who are truly running the research and development group, their focus is more on sound testing of either products they find or stuff I even find today. A good example of that would be, say, liquid metal for the bridge pins. That was something I came across and didn't have much expectations of it being really good, but we thought we'll give it a shot. And to everybody's surprise, for such a little part on the guitar, it makes such a big difference in the tone of the guitar and the output. So that's just one small example. There's other stuff that those guys find and develop. And another recent example is our Lux pick line. So the material they found is a very good material. It lasts a long time. They developed their own proprietary shape of the pick. So there's actually 3 different sides to it. So it depends, how you like your attack. You can get a softer attack, a harder attack. So yeah, it's been a great experience overall.
Maybe now is a good time for the trivia question. Tim, I'm not sure how many times you've heard the program, but we're almost 15, 20 minutes into things, and we love to tease our listeners with a reason to listen to the whole thing, probably.
Okay.
You guys might both know this, but I don't know if Spoon knows all this information. I'm going to throw out the weekly trivia question. What year did Maury meet Tim Teel? And you get extra points if you know who introduced us. So
okay.
Stew on that for a little while. We'll bring you back the answer at the end of the program.
Fascinating.
Spoon, do you think you know?
I don't think I know. I will put my memory banks on full research in the meantime.
I should know, and I don't know.
Well, maybe I can make up whatever year I want, but it sounds like earlier in the program we were talking about how old Tim Teel's Mac is, but I think the memory banks in Spoon Phillips' brain are just a little bit older still. So
Yeah, just a bit.
we'll see who does the spinning pinwheel first.
There you go.
So that's quite a career, and you have been there. Similar to Dick Boak before you, who's now retired, you saw an amazing passage of years and change and expansion and modernization. But at the same time, because you were there when Chris Martin basically came into his own and really expanded the forward-thinking trajectory while also embracing the vintage and golden era and authentic
Yes.
idea of going back to the golden era in a more and more deeply satisfying way for a lot of us guitar players.
Yeah, that was a great privilege in terms of being able to spearhead a lot of the golden era, vintage, and finally into the authentic lines. And then, the advancements we made along the way, even with the authentic program, it's like, it's not just a matter of taking a guitar out of the museum and replicating it, which we do obviously, and that's part of the program. But how do you capture what you're hearing? And that was always elusive, because you could in theory create a guitar, with the sizes and the wood types, and you could get this thing made, and then you play it next to one that is 70 or 80 years old, and they don't sound the same. And the obvious answer is, oh well, it just needs to age. And yeah, it would be nice to have a time machine, So the closest thing we came to today for a time machine is basically the torrefaction process that we developed with a third-party treater. They basically took a look at a soundboard from, let's say, the 1920s, and we kept treating new wood until microscopically they would align, they would match up. And what the torrefaction process does is it removes the hemicellulose that's within the cells of the wood without destroying the main structure of the wood fibers. So at the end of the day, what you get is a product that has that old time, and I like to describe it as kind of a chimey ring that you get off of the older guitars. You now have that quality right out of the box. Now, obviously, there's other things that need to age naturally, such as the lacquer that's on the guitar, the nitrocellulose lacquer, and also some of the adhesives. And with the authentic line, as you guys know, we are using hot hide glue. So the hot hide glue, as it ages, becomes more brittle and less sound absorbing. So that helps transfer all of the energy of the string throughout the instrument, and really provides that sound that everybody's craving. So yeah, so it's a real interesting example with those products.
Now to go in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to start talking about some of the more innovative stuff that would show up on limited editions and stuff, and then eventually were combined in the modern deluxe. But before we go there, I would like to ask you if you can think of, across your design, the design projects you've been involved with, and eventually were the team leader of, and ultimately the head of instrument design. Are there, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 that stand out that you are most proud of, or were most excited about, and happy with how they turned out? Individual models, anything from a artist signature model to a series, or however you want to put it.
Well, the interesting thing is when I first got into the R&D department, and we've had lots and lots of meetings around the X series, and I remember distinctly Chris Martin saying to me, Tim, you're going to come across a lot of adversity in this role. He said, just don't be afraid to fail. And I thought that was great advice, because as you're developing anything, whether it's a guitar or doesn't matter what it is, in the development process there are failures, and that's how you learn, is by failing. You can think and you can speculate all you want until you actually physically try it. That's where the proof is at the end of the day. Did it work or didn't it work? And if it did not, then how do you fix it, or how do you change it so that it does work? So going through the process of developing the X series, which I'd say that would be my first, that's the one I basically cut my teeth on. A big, huge project. Some before that was finishing up some stuff when I first got in there about the intonation We got the compensated saddle worked out. So, that was pretty cool too. But as far as guitar development, I think the X series is kind of unique because we were working with materials unrelated to guitar construction and making them work, and having a functional product line that's been for sale since 1998 and is going strong today. So
Mm.
so that'd be my first one, just from a timing perspective. And I did really enjoy kind of the opposite of that, which was, again, trying to replicate what people consider the best guitars in the world, those golden era pre-war guitars from the 1930s and 40s. We've learned so much in developing those guitars, from bracing, from finishing, from layout, and some new techniques. And then along the way, of course, playing between both synthetic and natural worlds, you come across materials to kind of blur or blend the two together. And you mentioned it before, the modern deluxe line, I think, has the potential of being the best of both worlds, because the authentic line is awesome, they sound great, but there's things on it that don't address some of the complaints, let's say, for neck shape. So the authentics don't have an adjustable rod, so that's always a hesitation for some folks, because if you like a very low action, you need to have an adjustable truss rod so that you can get a better low action setup. And we've developed some product within that guitar, such as the carbon fiber bridge plate, which really adds a nice sustain to the guitar, and some other things to go along with that. So I think as far as my three favorites go, I would say the X series, all the development up through the authentics and the modern deluxe, and then lastly would be the very new thing we just came out with a few years ago, which is the SC guitar, and that's proven to be a very unique guitar for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. The tagline that our marketing folks came up with is "No Limits," and it basically allows the player to access the entire fretboard on a full size acoustic guitar. So that's new for the industry, really.
In addition to being Martin's first 13 fret guitar and first heelless guitar. So, and you can't really say it's an electric guitar neck, because the whole feel of it when you get up there is unique, as well as the helical shape to the neck.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I got to play one in your office when they were still in development, and was really kind of shocked, coming from a traditionalist standpoint, how much I enjoyed it immediately. and how fun it was, and how well it worked, and particularly the original model, how well it worked in terms of, for an electric guitarist to be able to take the plug out of their electric guitar, plug into an acoustic guitar, and with the almost freakish balance to it, because of how the weight is just absolutely centered at that, where the neck and the body meet, and so it just hangs there on the strap and doesn't slide up or down and all that stuff. So yeah, it was all very exciting. And then finally, recently, you came out with the first released solid wood version, this just recently. So that has had to have gotten you some pretty good reviews, I assume.
Yeah, obviously the first release, as you guys know, was the SC13E. That was a price-driven decision to get a guitar with a lot of features at a very specific price point. And for us to do that, it had to be within the Mexico product line. you got to understand, from the concept of this thing to the actual launch was probably about a 4-year development time. Um, and early on in development, things usually take a slower pace because we're focusing on body shape. Because once the shape is there, now you can start looking at how it's physically going to go together, and then that leads you down some other roads. But you do not want to rush the shape, because there's a lot of time and investment to go after a product once the shape is done. And as we started developing it, we started forming a team at a certain point to really dig into some of the top issues, or not top as in guitar top, but some of the main issues, which was, okay, the shape's pretty cool. We finally got that to the point where everybody was digging it, and then now we got to fit a neck to the to the body. And the original way I thought to do it was to actually create two halves of a guitar out of solid chunks of wood and kind of clamshell them together so that we could experiment with neck attachment. And as we started going in that direction, it became pretty apparent that our normal dovetail application it would not be the best way to pursue it. When we started actually getting into the, let's say, nuts and bolts of the SC, it was like, okay, one of the things is, Martin's known for being a dovetail company, and we wanted to really maintain that. And even though it's a modular neck, and it became pretty apparent early on that a bolt or a glued-in neck wasn't the best fit for the design. So we wanted to go into a direction of, okay, this is going to be a modular neck. Okay, but it still has to be a dovetail. And then you start, scratching your head and thinking, okay, well, I think we can do this, which also meant that we needed to create some very unique custom parts. And then, of course, you got to source those parts. You got to make sure you got everything set in line to produce these. How repeatable is it? So it became a multi-layered, multi-team project. And I think it's, to date, I'd say it was the most complex and the most involved guitar development we did in the company that I could ever remember. I don't think anything has gotten that many people involved in the company. So it was really good. And obviously the first ones were made in Mexico. We just launched the custom in Nazareth, and we wanted to show the world that, hey, this is not just a fine veneer guitar made in Mexico. We can also do this as a solid wood guitar made in Nazareth. And we actually added a feature to it, which is actually a patented part of the soundboard. We're calling it an internal recurve. So some of the soundboard is removed, and it goes from like nothing down to a certain point and then kind of swoops back up. It's a compound recurve basically on the bass side of the instrument to allow the bass to flex, or allow the top to flex a little bit more on the bass side to get some of the bass response back from the shape of the body. And what I mean by that is the shape of the SC is asymmetrical. Obviously, it's has less area on the bass side of the guitar, so that means the soundboard can't vibrate as much, which, if you're looking for a very smooth linear guitar, they're great for recording, but it did not have that Martin boom that we're known for. So we wanted to add some of that back into our solid wood models, meaning the first one coming out. So we developed this.
He said plural.
You did say plural. I know nothing. I see nothing.
Yeah, so any solid wood guitar that you see coming out of Nazareth will have this internal top recurve on it as a plus. So yeah, good stuff.
Tim, when you say recurve, does that almost mean that you scallop the top, not the brace, or am I hearing that wrong?
You're half correct. Yeah, we're just talking about the soundboard, and yes, you could think of it like a scalloping of the inside of the soundboard
Wow.
around the bass area. Yeah. So I don't think a lot of people know about it because we didn't really do a lot of marketing hype around that patent. But yeah, it does add a bit more bass response to the guitar compared to not having it. So it's a pretty cool little feature.
And you mentioned that was almost a 4-year process from the beginning of the SC to when it was first introduced. Are you allowed to tell us at any point, was there any opportunity that was actually going to fall and just fall apart and not come to fruition?
Every project has that possibility, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Like, did you guys ever get to the point where this isn't going to work? We're almost just going to give up?
yeah, we've done that on several things, and sometimes it's not based on the failure of the product or the development of it. Sometimes it's just a decision made that maybe it's not the right timing for such a thing. But we're always looking to get the right product out to the consumer base at the right time. The super recent thing that just popped, and I think you guys might have seen this, is the Super Dreadnought. Um,
Oh, I
yeah.
wasn't sure if I was allowed to ask you about that yet. So is that out of the bag now? Have you guys announced this?
Well, it's been announced on social, and it's launching right now exclusively for a certain dealers. So it's basically a custom expert product. Eventually, it will make its way into the regular product line, but that's going to be a little while. But that guitar in particular was designed for people who for a long time there's been some chatter around small guitars, and everybody wants a small guitar, and so we just thought as a company, wouldn't it be great to go and do the opposite? Let's do a big guitar. And Fred Green in particular, we were chatting the one day, and he's just like, he goes, I was thinking about some of the conversations we were having, and I just think now's the right time for a larger dreadnought. And I'm like, oh, this is great, because I was already working on some ideas for doing like a combination of a D12 fret body with a 14 fret neck. So I knew it could work. I knew there was room, and the bracing layout and all that stuff. So basically the Super Dreadnought body is a 14 fret design, but it's enlarged to the point where if you measure from the front block to the rear block, that distance is about the same distance as a D12 fret, but because it's in the shape of a 14 fret and it's enlarged to that point, you get a different profile. And everybody, at first they oh, well, that's going to be way too big. It's literally not that big, but the sound benefit you get out of it is pretty amazing. We measured up to 11 or 12 decibel bump or bass on the bass side.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a boomer. And then so Scott Sasser was able. He was looking for a product to get to the custom expert dealers, and he was looking to do something different and unique. And we weren't quite ready to launch the Super Dreadnought just because of everything that was going on with COVID and the way the products were we couldn't keep up production. Obviously, it was everything was in high demand. So we decided to do basically a slower launch, which that put it into the custom expert hands. And yeah, they're just really unique guitars in terms of how they sound. So, Maury, our friend from Hawaii, Bobby,
Yeah.
yeah, he contacted me because he heard about it through social on I think Thursday, and he was just like, hey, brother, let me slack one of these puppies,
Oh, that thing in slack key would be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said it's probably a really good slacker, for Hawaiian music. So he's looking
Absolutely.
forward to trying one out. Yeah.
Well, as we know with the Kealoha, is that the correct pronunciation?
The
The
Kealakai. Yeah.
Kealoha, yeah, that in a way is it was not a 14 fret, but that was kind of the point of the Hawaiian music, to have that giant sound chamber. Now I just dug out here some notes I have from October 2020 talking to you about this project. And it's interesting because it says here that you were looking at maybe summer 2023. So,
Hmm.
which gives people an idea of how long these things come out, and it already had, by that time, it was basically, what you had come up with was already there. The multicolor herringbone trim that's unique
Yep.
to this, some of the other features of this. But then, I hadn't heard from it for a while, and as Mara was asking about some of these projects just not come out, and that's, and I imagine sometimes or they get put off or whatever. But then you surprised me by when I show up at the factory in August, and you take me straight to your office and put one of them in my hands. And actually both, the two different woods. And I really was not prepared. I've played those big 12 fret dreadnoughts, and all the time over the years. And also like the Norman Blake models, that is a kind of the opposite of having a kind of a 14 fret body with a 12 fret neck, or however those were. And
Hmm.
things like that were kind of combining the ideas, and this is taking it in the opposite direction. And they're mammoth sounding. They're just really for people who have always want their Martins turned up to 11, like in sort of the Spinal Tap idea. This is the guitar for them, I can tell you.
Wow.
Well,
So
the Rosewood sounds really good too, but for some reason that Koa seems to be where everybody's gravitating to. And we got one of each to the Tenacious D guys, Jack Black and Kyle Gass.
excellent.
Yeah, so I heard they were loving them, and they posted something online recently about it as well. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Well,
Fun
without giving
stuff.
away any trade secrets, Tim, because I know we're not allowed to put anything on tape here that's no wine before its time, so to speak.
That's right.
Is there anything in the pipeline right now that we already admitted it might be 2, 3, 4 years until it comes out? Is there anything right now in your back pocket that you were just totally ecstatic about and you can't wait to get it out there?
Yeah, there's probably about three or four things right now. It's either a product extension or new development for sustainable wood projects that we're looking at. Yeah. So without giving too much away, there's some really cool stuff coming. But
Excellent.
and again, the stuff we have out right now is just amazing. I think we talked about before the golden era of guitar making back in the 1930s and 40s, and I think this is the second golden era for guitar making, and the stuff that's available today is just phenomenal.
That's impressive.
Yeah, you're not alone. You're not the first person to say that, certainly in public, about that, about the guitar making, not just at Martin, but just around the
In
world.
general, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's acoustic guitars, electric guitars, but for acoustic guitar fans, the options, particularly when people are looking at the solid wood, finely crafted guitars, but even the inexpensive ones. Chris had said, Martin IV had said, several years ago that 50% of the acoustic guitar market in the world is under $500, and maybe that's gone up a little bit now, but you're still talking about when you're talking about your X series and your Rhodes series, these are completely different animals from the guitars that used to be, when you think of the Sears and Roebuck kind of guitars and stuff like that, that people were spending not a lot of money on. They're
Yes,
just it's
that's
a
true.
completely different universe in terms of quality and tone and that the musicality of the modern
Yeah,
guitars out there.
yeah, and given the advancements in machining and there's some just advancements in the factory in terms of manufacturing advancements even in the past year that are pretty amazing. And again, I don't want to give those out prematurely, but if you get a chance to get to the factory, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see some of this stuff. And those things alone are going to open up some new doors down the road, and let your imagination run wild. But yeah, I'd say we're just at the cusp of this new wave of doing some things. And yeah, I mean, from the guitar side of things, especially on the acoustic side, it's a bright future coming up. So yeah, stay tuned.
Indeed, indeed.
We have some listeners that have been emailing me off and on, even long before this podcast was born, and they're often asking questions about electronics. And when you go to Martin, a lot of Fishman offerings, and recently we've got some choices from LR Bags. Again, without
Right.
saying any trade secrets or giving away information that shouldn't be spoken about, can I ask you off the record, have you personally been looking at other opportunities and other manufacturers for some pickups down the road, or is that something we can't talk about?
Well, I can't give you any specifics, but yes, we're always looking for innovative electronics. We have partnered with great folks like Fishman. The development of Aura, Maury, as you know, you were early on in that, right?
Oh
With the
yeah, yeah.
Aura
Tim Perry and I
process.
had a lot of fun beta testing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and the recent iterations of Aura, they're calling it now Aura HD, as in high definition Aura. Every development cycle, when we chose what new guitar would have the Aura image put into it, those go up to Fishman. We get them voiced. They select probably 8 or 10 really high quality studio microphones to develop each image. And then we go up and select, in this case, now with Aura Blend, there's one image that you can blend in or out of the system. And we select that best image, and it's a tedious process. It takes us a couple days to do it for just a handful of guitars. And, I mean, it's a complicated product. To the end consumer, it's not complicated at all. You got literally a volume, a sweeping tone control, and a blend control between this really incredible sounding Aura image and the undersaddle pickup. And Maury, as you know, playing out live, sometimes you need more of the undersaddle pickup to cut through, and then other times when you're sitting in your studio and you're recording, you can go, now 100% to Aura, and it sounds like you're in front of a great microphone.
Yep.
So all of that stuff's awesome. We also, and let me just say this too, that it's an awesome product. We put it in a product line that it makes sense for. So right now it's concentrated in the Modern Deluxe, because of it's not a cheap product. You're paying for a professional grade product and a professional grade guitar. But if you're looking for other solutions that require a lower cost, then we have stuff from not only Fishman but LR Bags. They have some really nice product out there as well. It's another solution. We do look at other products. We've evaluated some of the other brands that are out there. Years ago, we ran some product from Roland Electronics. We ran some product from Misai. So yeah, we're always looking to see what's available and what fits the best for our product line at the time.
And I hinted earlier about the trivia question and when we first met,
Yeah.
and it's centered completely around pickups. I'm not sure if Spoon's going to remember some of these details because this was actually before I met him. Why don't we go in order and answer that trivia question? What year did Maury meet Tim Teel? Okay, Spoon, you guess first.
Well, let me ask you this. Remind me of what year did this shop open?
No. Just answer the question.
No. I got to put my the grand opening happened in 2006,
2003.
2003. Okay, so then I will guess 2001.
Okay, I'm going to let Tim guess. Tim, when did we meet?
And I just need to know what year your wife gifted you the famous OM guitar.
Well, that's going to give away a lot of the answer, but that was Christmas 1998.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I'm going to guess I met you somewhere around 98, 99.
Well, you shouldn't guess. You should just know that because that should be one of the most important days of your life. But yes.
That's right. That's right.
It had to be January, February of 99. I remember getting my guitar in, of course, December of 98, going way, way back into Nesquehoning history. My neighbor, if we want to talk about the 70s and 80s, Angelo O'Meal, I know him a lot longer than I know both of you guys. And he said, listen, if you need to put a pickup in your OM20AV, you got to see Tim Teel. I said, what do you mean? He's like, I'm telling you. And he was so dramatically serious. You got to see Tim Teel. Just trust me. And he introduced us. And I won't make Spoon guess what the pickup was, but I had the glued-in saddle, of course, back then. And Tim recommended I get the Fishman Rare Earth Blend. And that was the very first pickup in my guitar, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I had the OM18V. And shortly after, I got a used OM28V, so I used the same pickup because of the glued-in saddles.
Wow. See that?
Yeah. So it was a good recommendation then, I guess, huh?
Yes, it was. Somehow Spoon and I knew we wanted to be like each other, and that's just how that goes together.
Well, I forgot Angelo was the guy who turned you on to me at the time. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Angelo because he's still working at the factory. I run across him from time to time, and I know he lives up our way here. And he's a great guy. He does a lot of the programming for a lot of our custom machines and some of the CNC stuff. So
wow.
he's been a really, really good asset for the company. And has contributed greatly to all these new products we were talking about over the years. So special shout out to Angelo O'Meal. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Angelo, if you're listening, thanks for setting us in the right trajectory, and I'm so glad we all met.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So I think I want to as we start to wind this down, I know you gave up yet another beautiful day. I hope you were able to get a ride in before this. But I think what's really on everybody's mind is when Tim Teel rides, what is Tim Teel's ride?
What am I riding?
Wait for it.
Okay. Well, today I rode my Ducati Multistrada V4S Sport.
I knew it. What is that?
It's a new class of motorcycle called a sport adventure bike.
Wow. Well, seems fitting.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good ride today. But
What about you, Spoon? What were you riding today?
What was I riding today? I was riding the B61 bus as I was coming home from my sister's with a bag full of video equipment and was taking the bus up the hill in Brooklyn.
I want to thank both of you guys for taking a couple hours out of a beautiful fall day here in Pennsylvania to join us again. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look forward to the next go around. It's been a blast. Thank you so much, and see you guys at the factory.
You bet.
From all of us at Maury's Music, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.
This has been a presentation of Maury's Music, your trusted source for Martin and Blue Ridge guitars. Find us online at maurysmusic.com.